And we're live. Hi, everybody. This is Loren Baker, founder of SEJ. With me, I have Mr. Greg Gifford. Hey, Greg.
Hey, what's going on, man?
So today we're going to be talking about local search, Google My Business, all the untapped opportunity or new opportunity there. And first, I'd like to let you introduce yourself, and then we'll talk about some things that happened this week.
Yeah, so for everybody that doesn't know me, I'm Greg Gifford. I've been speaking at conferences for a long time, so I'm sure, and writing for different things for a long time. So most people have probably heard of me if you've been to any of the major conferences, but I do local SEO. I've been in kind of the local SEO game for 12, 13 years now. So, I've been lucky enough that people dig my presentation style. So I've gotten to go to a lot of really cool conferences all over the world. And I love movies. I love snowboarding. I got a zoo at my house. I think we have 10 pets now. 9. Ooh. I lose track. I don't even know. We have so many damn animals at the house. And I got a bunch of kids too. So yeah, it's a crazy life, but I love it.
That wasn't so bad when those conferences going on, right? And travel.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of our animals is a bird, and it turns out that birds kind of like imprint on one person. So whether that person is the person you want it to be or not, you have no control over. And that person is their person. And so we got this bird, and even though at the time I was traveling and stuff, man, the bird imprinted on me. And so now it's turned into my bird. And back when I was traveling, it did not go well for everyone left at home because that bird would squawk and make all sorts of noise because it hadn't seen me in a couple of days. Yeah. So that part's been a little nicer that, I've been able to spend more time with the bird and all the other pets. It's nice. I love animals, so it's not that bad. It's easier to be around and help with the pets and not leave it all on my wife and my older kid while I'm out of town.
There you go. There you go. So before we get started, I kind of alluded to this a little bit and talk about some of the week's happenings. I'm going to try to set this up correctly here. One moment. Oh, okay. And
there we go.
Boom.
Fancy.
Yeah. So feel really weird kicking off the first live conversation that we've had this week. Like to dedicate this time to a dear friend of ours and someone who's really important from not only from the SEO industry, and the word friend is passed around quite a bit loosely. Hamlet Batista was one of the dearest people I have ever met in my life and kindest. First met him probably 20 years ago when he was just getting started in the industry and we were getting started and things like that. And then he kind of popped back onto the scene about 5 years ago or so. He's always been around forever, always been one of the kindest people. Unfortunately, Hamlet's life was cut short. He contracted COVID towards the end of December. He was in the hospital for a month. 2 weeks weren't that bad. The final 2 weeks he was suffering, and he passed this week. I can't think of anybody that I would wish something like this upon, but definitely not Hamlet. And really, I know it's hit a lot of people in this industry hard because of the surprise around it. And then also he was a father and a husband, in addition to being the CEO of a company that was growing and successful. But he left behind a loving wife and 2 children. And for those of you that are parents out there, or all of you that have parents and friends and loved ones, it's just it's been a crippling time.
Yeah.
So Greg, I'll give you a chance to say something. Then I'd like to have a small little moment of silence.
Yeah, it just sucks because, obviously anytime a friend dies, everybody's going to be upset. But it's been really hard this week getting on social media and seeing just the huge outpouring of how many people he touched and everybody saying such great things. And he's just so kind and just always had a smile on his face. It's heartbreaking. It's been tough. And yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that, a lot of us that speak kind of have that imposter syndrome kind of thing happening where you're like, wow, I'm hanging out with these other speakers and these other guys are smarter than me. But man, I always felt like a complete idiot when I sat in on his sessions because he was so smart and so ahead of things. And it's just horrible. Like there's just no words to describe. It's just awful.
All right, let's give a couple seconds in remembrance to Hamlet. Okay, we're going to miss you, buddy. For those of you that are interested in helping out his family after the loss, I have shared a GoFundMe that was set up with Hamlet's widow. And please feel free to do what you can. Don't feel pressured, but do what you can. There's also some resources on there you can check into as well, just about his life and company and everything else. So thanks, Greg, for that. And let's move on. So local search, Google My Business.
Yep, that's my jam.
That's your jam. So there's not very many people that are hyper targeted in terms of what they focus on in the world of SEO, but you have been in the local search. Has it been since day one, or was there a natural progression?
Not since day one, but since pretty early on. And there's a lot more people than you think that are focused in local. But for years, local's kind of been this just niche thing that you go to a conference and there'd be one session about local search, and there's so many elements to it. But it just kind of never really caught on. And lately it's really caught on. I mean, you go to SMX, there's multiple tracks. You go to conferences like PubCon or State of Search, and they've got like an entire track of multiple sessions on local. And I think what it really is people always knew they needed SEO. They just didn't really understand that the local algorithm was different. And I think it's something that a lot of people have needed for a long time, and they just didn't know that they needed it. And now it's kind of flipping the other direction, where there's probably more people going to these digital marketing conferences that need to know about local than need to know about traditional. So it seems like it's been exploding and growing, and you're seeing more and more about it online and more about it at these conferences, when, man, it's been there all along. I mean, the old school OGs like Mike Blumenthal, Will Scott, David Mim, Mike Ramsey, Darren Shaw, they've been talking about this stuff for 10 years plus, and it's just really kind of come to the forefront, really more so because mobile search exploded so much, and mobile searches tend to be inherently localized even without specifying in your search query. So, I think that helped out a lot. But, then you got, people like me that even specialize further, where for most of my career, I've been only automotive. So not only just local SEO, but specifically local SEO for auto dealers. And then now I'm in a place where I've branched out and do any vertical. But yeah, it's crazy. And then you got people like Joy Hawkins, who is ridiculously smart and one of the top people in local search. And she really only kind of came in. I mean, she's been around for a while, but really only kind of get noticed by people in the last few years. And then Blake Denman's awesome. There's a lot of people in local. It's just due to the fact that most conferences don't have tons and tons of local SEO stuff, we're not as visible,
Well, the thing that's always got me about local is you don't have to be a local company or brick and mortar or franchise or whatever for local to impact your performance, right? Sure. Because even if I'm online only, the results differ. The search results differ from town to town, city to city, county to county, state by state, etc. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what business you're in.
No, yeah, I mean,
local plays a part in everything.
I do. I tend to do at a lot of conferences an all-day kind of masterclass local SEO training, whatever that conference tends to call it. But you pay extra to sit through an all-day long training on whatever subject, and I do local. And several times I've had pretty major top-level people from e-commerce companies come in because they want to learn how they can compete with the local brick and mortars that are showing up. I've had people that are from very, very large, very well-known porn companies that come in and want to know, and you would think, why would online porn need to do local search? But there are certain queries where they want to figure out how they need to show up so that they can compete. So they do it. And then you've got other companies that they might be mostly e-commerce, but they have a couple of storefronts, so they need to know local. So it's pretty wide appeal. But like I said, a lot of people, until you kind of get to that point that you figure it out, you don't necessarily know you need it.
And it can be a little bit frustrating too. Like I always get the question, well, we ranked number 1, we ranked number 2. How come our traffic is lower this year than last year? And it's because Google has essentially changed the real estate of the SERP, right?
Sure.
Not only do you have people also ask, but you have local results which appear higher than in some queries and others, but they appear, and especially on a mobile device, as you see, usage has gone from desktop to mobile, Chrome to Safari,
Yep.
right? That's all happening. So to scroll, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop?
Exactly.
How many scrolls does it take to get to the number 1, number 2 result, right?
Well, and then you've got new paid stuff like the LSA ads that show up for certain verticals above the standard paid search stuff that just pushes organic that much further down. And now you can buy ads in the map pack and ads on Google Maps. So like there's just local search isn't really local SEO anymore. It's truly local search because there's paid media involved with local now too. So it gets more and more complex as time goes on instead of getting easier, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I can I'm going to go a little bit off topic here, and then we'll come back. I can tell who there's a couple local papers in my town that I know either they sell links on their sites or somebody that has access to their site sells links. Because I'll do some queries sometime for I don't know, like shingle repair or gutter repair or something, right?
Right.
And I'll see Santa Clarita gutter repair or best gutter repair places in Santa Clarita. So I'll click on the local result from one of our local news sites, and then I see something all about gutter repair, and it's a link to a company that's like in Minnesota or something. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. These guys just bought a link, and now I'm getting it in the local, which is really interesting. So the local media and local publications play a role in that as well. Like it for a while, when you would search for online dating in the LA area, you would get the LA Times online dating section, which is really weird.
Yeah.
Now, if you search for coupons or offer codes, you get the LA Times coupon section, which magically appeared around the same time Business Insider and CNN's coupon sections magically appeared and started ranking as well. So local it's so integrated into search as a whole. And then, of course, to come back to where we were going from a conversation perspective, Google My Business is your kind of back-end management solution to manage everything that you're doing on the Google side of things, in the same way that Search Console is for search, same way that Merchant Center is for shopping.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, and it really goes beyond Search Console because it's been a big thing for several years that Google's moving towards entity-based search, and local's always been entity-based. You can rank in local in the map pack or on Google Maps without even having a website, which kind of blows the minds of people that are just learning about SEO and have that concept of SEO is related to the optimization of your website. How can you rank without a website? Well, that's because of all the stuff that's in Google My Business. So, your Google My Business dashboard is really kind of a direct interface with Google's database entry or whatever entity graph entry about your business. So you can really influence what Google knows about you by putting the right stuff in there.
Is there a reason to build out a Google My Business profile for a business that's not locally based? Or
You're
doesn't have
actually
local
not
traffic?
allowed to. So to be eligible to have a profile, you have to meet face-to-face with a customer to do business. Now that can happen at a physical storefront, like you have a store, you're selling widgets, people come to the store to buy the widgets from you, or it could happen at that customer's location, like a plumber or an electrician. You don't go see the plumber at their office. The plumber comes to your house or to your office to do the work that they do. So those are what's called service area businesses. So either one of those are eligible, but for like an online only business or like an e-commerce business that just does business nationally, you're not eligible to have a Google My Business. Now, if you're a service company, like a pest control company, and you've got offices all over the place, then you can have one for each office. If you're an e-commerce company, You could have a Google My Business for your corporate headquarters. You know, if you're a shipping company and you have customers that have to come to your warehouse to pick things up, then you could have a Google My Business for each of your warehouse locations. So there's a lot of kind of intricate things there, but the base rule is you have to do face-to-face business in the real world with customers to have a Google My Business.
So as long as you have a door, an open door, a place for people to go, maybe do some kind of business.
To a degree, yes. Yeah. Then it gets all. Then there's more stuff there too. Like you can't use a Regis office or a WeWork or something that's like a virtual office. So you have to have your staff. So you know, people will say, "Well, the Regis front desk person is there all the time." Well, no, because they're not on your payroll. You have to have your staff member on your payroll there during the hours that you say you're open. You have to have permanent signage, and you have to have a separate entrance to be able to qualify. Wow. So that's where some people get hung up is they're like, well, I'm just going to go get a Regis office. Lawyers love to do that. They'll get a Regis office at 25 different locations in the LA area so that they can show up in every possible suburb, but they really just have an office downtown. And, you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of spam like that and tactics that work, but it's also something that's not sustainable because, you know, there's agencies out there and local that their main priority is just taking down all of your competitors' spam. Because if you're at the 10th or 11th spot and 8 of the ones above you are fake listings and you can get somebody to nuke those listings, well, then all of a sudden you go from number 8 to number 2 or number 3.
It's true.
So, you know, there's a lot of different, it depends on the vertical that you're in. You know, locksmiths are bad, lawyers are bad, but car dealers don't really ever do spam listings because it's pretty easy to tell, hey, there's not a car dealership at that address.
Speaking of car dealerships, I hear that Google made some changes in Google My Business, which really opened up a lot of opportunity for car dealers last week. You want to go over that a little bit?
Yeah. So Google made a whole lot of changes in local last year due to COVID to help businesses kind of address the change in customer behavior and safety procedures and such. And they made a lot of updates specifically for car dealers around some of the idiosyncrasies in the automotive vertical. And they've been running a test since late last summer that they now have ended the beta on it. And it is now open to the public as of last Friday. Car dealers can list their entire inventory on their Google My Business listing. Now, Google My Business has always had the products feature where you can manually say, I've got this product, but you wouldn't go in and do that. If you're a large Ford dealer and you've got 250 cars on the lot, you wouldn't go in and manually put in 250 cars. You'd put in 2021 F-150. Hey, we've got F-150s. We've got a bunch of stock and we're the biggest, you know, inventory set in Dallas. Click here and you click on that. And then it takes you to a filtered list of all the F-150s in stock. This is different. This is an actual, what in the industry we call a vehicle details page. So you go to that profile and it's really high on the profile. It's directly below all your top line information. And it's a new section that's labeled cars for sale. And it shows a little thumbnail of that vehicle and like the year, make, model of the vehicle and the price. And when you click on that, it goes to what we call a VDP or vehicle details page that's hosted on Google that shows all the photos of the vehicle, the price, the mileage, all that sort of stuff, then all of the bullet points of the features. And then you can either you can click to call directly from that, or you can click to see the full listing on the dealership's website. And it goes to that full details page on the dealer's website. And it's a game changer. It's going to really, really make a huge difference for a lot of dealers out there, but it's so new, like hardly anybody knows about it. And it's not actually a feature of Google My Business that dealers can just go turn on. It's a thing that Google formed as kind of like a partnership to get this specific inventory feed that goes in there. So unfortunately, you have to work with one of the agency providers that has access to this program.
Now, is that
on for everybody at some point? But right now, you have to work with one of those limited providers.
Is that an inventory feed that would mirror the inventory feed used for another aggregate site like a Car Gurus or Edmunds?
So as a car dealer, they're all going to have inventory feeds already because your inventory feed is, you know, you've got your DMS system, dealer management system, where you're entering all your information about your cars or whatnot. And then that inventory feed is what goes to cars.com, Car Gurus, Auto Trader, your website. If you're doing Facebook ads, it's going to Facebook. So you're just adding in another source,
different channel,
and that inventory feed too.
Kind of interesting. You know, I've been playing around with Google Merchant Center a bit recently, and Google last year rolled, especially during curbside pickup and lockdown time, rolled out an addition for merchants to be able to sync their Merchant Center feed with Google My Business as well, to be able to show the product inventory that's available in different locations. Now that's a pretty big step though, right? Because all different stores have different product inventory. So I haven't executed it or looked into it 100%. The difficult thing is like if one store is out and one store is stocked, how is that communicated at the end of the day? Things like that. Difference seems to be is that on the car side, that's already set up. So it's just a question of integrating the pre-existing feed.
Yeah, and then Google will refresh that list every 4 hours. So some feeds are going to go out once a day, some go out twice a day, some, every feed's going to be different, but Google refreshes. So Google's going to check that feed every 4 hours. So you sell a car and it's going to disappear pretty quick. So you don't have that issue of, bait and switch, false advertising, people complaining you don't have that car. But they haven't released any metrics yet on how successful it is because it literally just came out on Friday. But the word on the street is that it's been a significant boost to the bottom line of the dealerships that have been in the program so far. So it's going to be exciting to see where this goes. It's definitely been a really exciting week because of that.
And this is purely organic right now, correct?
Yeah, it doesn't even show on desktop. It's only on mobile so far. Now, I think I don't see why they wouldn't roll it out to desktop at some point. But right now, the dealerships that are in it, if you've got it, it won't even show if you're on desktop. It only shows on mobile. But most traffic's coming on mobile anyway now, so who cares?
Sounds like it's probably a new paid advertising opportunity for the Google team as well. It's not very often to roll out something on organic and then
it's shockingly affordable. This is the sort of thing that if you'd have come to a dealer and said, hey, it's $1,000 a month to do this, dealers would be like, cool, here's my money.
Gotcha.
And it's shockingly, I don't want to say a price, but it is shockingly cheap to do this. So I think Google's move is more they want mass adoption. For one of two reasons. And this is I don't have a tinfoil hat, but I got my tinfoil hat on, my Google conspiracy hat.
Let's do it.
I think there's one of two things going on. I think they're doing the drug dealer thing of like, let's get this out cheap to everybody or free. You get a free sample of this crack, but then you're addicted and you're going to have to buy it from me. So they're going to get it out free to get mass adoption, and then they're going to just skyrocket that price. But then anybody's going to pay it because they're already going to see it successful.
Already hooked.
I think the other thing that's more likely is they want everybody in for the organic level of making it free. And then it's going to be the same sort of thing as tying the Merchant Center in and running ads in. I think they're already going to say, well, we've got this inventory feed. Now we can promote these. And not only do you have them in your Google My Business, but if somebody's looking for an F-150 in Chicago and you're in Chicago and you've got that inventory feed, then now you can bid on, almost like LSAs. You can bid on these inventory ads that are going to show up at the absolute top of search results, but they're going to be $50 a lead or something like that. I think that's probably more likely to be where they're going.
Yeah, more than likely. It's also quite a bit of data to have on hand too.
For sure.
Right? Like how much, I'm not sure how useful this is at the end of the day outside of advertising, but how much data is Google now going to have on
for sure
the entire auto industry? I'm just wondering which automobile investments Google Ventures has made.
Right.
A couple of years, especially after the news yesterday that Google cleaned up all the 1-star reviews on the Robinhood listing. And Robinhood is also a Google Ventures investment, right? Yep. So we'll see what happens on that front.
Right.
We'll see what happens on that front. Good old tinfoil hat.
Yep.
Let's take the tinfoil conspiracy hat off for a second and talk about another change that Google rolled out during really because of COVID, being the health and safety attributes on Google My Business. Have you taken advantage of those? And is there any benefit outside of the customer feeling safe?
I think it's entirely an issue of businesses getting those bad reviews of people saying, this guy made me wear a mask and I don't think I should have to wear a mask because I'm stupid and I want to give everybody COVID or whatever it would be. I think it's a response to that, just the public safety outcry of like, holy crap, we're all supposed to wear masks. Like, is this a safe place for me to go and do business if I need to do business? So you've got those health and safety attributes. So, 100%. I did I don't even remember. I think it was maybe for PubCon, but I did a presentation about the updates that Google rolled out specifically to Google My Business, revolving around things related to COVID, because a lot has come out in the last half of last year. And so at the beginning of that, there was a study, or I quoted stuff from various studies, but McKinsey did a study that said now the 3 primary factors for how people choose which local business they're going to do business with. Number 1, proximity to home. Like, they're going to go somewhere that's close, so they're not having to venture out really far. Number 2 is hygiene. What is the store doing to keep the store clean and, sanitize and whatnot? And number 3 is, the available area in the store. Is it a crowded store? Is there a line? Is there space for social distancing? So that study clearly shows that 2 of the 3 most important factors for choosing a local business revolve around COVID and COVID protocols. So it makes sense that Google would roll out the health and safety attributes to say, hey, look, we know, I'm sure Google's done studies as well, this is what people are looking for. We need to display this to help these businesses. Because the other flip side of it is a lot of local businesses are really suffering from these lockdowns. So Google rolled out these updates to try to, for once, it's not like, hey, we're putting on an update that's going to make you spend more money or that's going to give more real estate to paid stuff. It's, hey, we're rolling this out because we know people are struggling. We've got to help these businesses be able to show that, hey, I'm a safe place for you to come if you want to buy my stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense too. I'm a big fan of the foot traffic metrics within Google My Business myself, not as a marketer, but as a consumer.
Oh yeah.
Like, I purposely try to plan my trips to the UPS store, the bank, things like that when it's low foot traffic.
Yeah, for sure.
Outside of 5 to 7 or whatever. So that information is really helpful. And then I believe Google has also rolled out an update that assists with the ability to track desktop, mobile Google search traffic and differentiate between those on Google My Business as well as within Google Maps too.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people misunderstand when they're looking at the insights in Google My Business. Insights is kind of the analytical, here's what's going on. And, you'll see search impressions and you're like, oh my God, I showed up in 9,000 searches and only got 300 clicks. Something's wrong. But you have to understand that your Google My Business impression is anytime your business shows up in a search. So if I look used cars Dallas and there's a map pack that shows 3 results and I'm number 3 on the list, even if they don't click through to me because they're going to number 1, that's still an impression for me.
Right.
And anytime I look for, I might look for a business by name, and I look at that business by name because I need to get directions because I'm going there. I'm not going to click through to their website because I can get directions right there. Or I'm going to look for the business by name and click to call, and I've converted. But it looks bad if you're just looking at your impressions. Other thing too, depending on how zoomed in you are on Google Maps, if I'm doing a search on Google Maps and there's a, let's say I'm a pizza place, but there's a really popular donut shop next door or a couple of doors down, and everybody looks for that pizza or for that donut shop because they make the wacky donuts with Captain Crunch on it or whatever. As people are getting their directions to get there, especially if it's like a downtown area where they're really zoomed in because they're getting walking directions. If I'm looking at that map and that pizza place shows up on that map because I'm looking at the thing next door, that's an impression for the pizza place too. So it doesn't mean it's impressions of qualified search traffic. It's just your business location showed up in a search result, either on organic search results or on maps. So, you kind of got to take that stuff with a grain of salt because it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But it is useful to look at that over time if you're doing some local SEO and you're hopefully doing things that you're going to get more visibility for that Google My Business profile. You do want to watch the insights to see that over time you're gaining more visibility. And then you can break it down. They've got discovery and direct. And a direct impression means that person's search query, they were looking specifically for your exact business. And discovery is they were looking for something else and your business showed up. So you usually won't see much of an increase in your direct impressions because that's people that already know about you and they're looking for you. What you see is an increase in those discovery impressions where they weren't looking specifically for you, but now you're showing up. So like another car dealer example, let's say you weren't showing up at all for used car dealer in LA, but then you start working and doing some local SEO and you go from not being on page 1 to being, even number 3 in that map pack. So every time searches used car dealer or Ford dealer or whatever it would be, and now you're showing up in that map pack, you're getting an impression for every one of those. Now, does that mean more traffic? Not necessarily, but if you weren't showing up there before and now you are, you're going to see a big spike in those discovery impressions, which, kind of backs up the fact that, gee, my guy's doing stuff that I'm actually paying him to do and it's working.
This happened a couple of years ago with some clients that are in the continuing education space. And suddenly Google, this was like when Google rolled out not only the local pack, but the local pack with the call and the direction button. So maybe more than a couple of years ago. But suddenly we saw the traffic dive, right? And I get a call. What's going on? What's going on? Did we lose ranking? Did we lose our SEO? I'm like, let me see. No, you're still number 1, number 2, number 3. Oh, what's this? Oh, let's check. Have you gotten more phone calls recently by any chance? Oh, yeah. Phone's been ringing left and right. Ah, I see.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, you have all these presentations and videos and interviews and blog posts about zero-click search. And everybody's been talking about it for a few years. And it's all like, oh, it's because there's so much other stuff on the SERP. And there's rich snippets. And there's all these things. And Google's trying to keep you on the SERP. And that's why. And it's not always, people always kind of forget to talk about local search is a huge contributor to zero-click search. Because you've got the map pack where I don't click through to your website, but I could click into your listing. I can look at pictures, or even direct searches. I'm looking for a specific business. I can click and read their reviews. I can click and look at their pictures. I can look at the Q&A. I can interact and do so many things there and then convert into a customer of that business. But that's a zero-click search result. Yeah.
And you're talking about like sites companies and businesses not even having websites. Like I've trained myself not even to ever go to a restaurant website. I go to Google. I search, I find all their information, I find the menu. I'll go to Instagram, right? Because restaurants are great at Insta-ing all their stuff,
sure.
But more than likely, I'll go to Google, do my search, find the restaurant, find the hours. Only time I'll really go to the website is never look at the menu. Well, maybe if the menu's updated, but never look at the menu. It's to look at the hours, to make sure the hours are matching up, right? Then from Google, I'll either call, check the hours, make a reservation, or I'll click on that Google Reserve or Open Table link in the results themselves, make the reservation. Boom. That's the lead, leads to a purchase. No reason to touch the website. No reason to look at the PDF menu that I have to download and everything else that hasn't been updated in 3 years, right? Just go right to, just do it right there. And the one question I had for you when you were talking about the maps and impressions kind of got me thinking. Only time I ever do voice searches in the car, right? So I'm lost. I'm going somewhere. I got an idea. Kid's hungry. Hey Google. Okay, Google, find me this. Find me that. Hey Siri, find me this. Find me that. What are the directions to the hot chicken place, right? So in that case, I don't even do the search myself. I don't look at anything. I'm just listening and talking to this robot in the car. It's telling me which direction to go. They do all the research for me based upon the data that they found off of Google My Business and the feeds that are associated and everything with like that. Tell me my choices. I say, yes, take me there. That's the direction. Boom. That's an SEO conversion right there. When I go and I buy $30 worth of hot chicken and milkshakes and all that other stuff for hungry kids.
You still have all the people out there that, several years back, the kind of big buzzy thing was to optimize for near me searches.
Right.
And now nobody does a near me search because user behavior has changed. You realize if you're like, hey, I'm looking for a pizza place. It's not going to show me a pizza place in Chicago. It's going to show me a pizza place that's near my location, and people know that. But you still have businesses out there that do these just really janky pages where it's like each one on the page is, are you looking for a pizza place near me? And I'm like, if you really think about it, that's the business saying, are you looking for a pizza place near our pizza place? Like, it makes no sense. And the reality too is, if I'm on this and I say, I need a pizza place near me, it's not going to be basing it off of the pizza places that are putting a page up about being a pizza place near me. As soon as I say near me, that's telling Google, I really care more about proximity than I do about reviews. And it's going to show me the stuff that's close to my location in the real world.
So here's a question. When I'm in the car and I talk to my navigation system and I ask for the hot chicken place to go to near us, does Google count that as an impression?
Are you using the car's navigation system, or are you using like Apple CarPlay or Android Connect or something like that?
It matters if I'm using Bluetooth or not, what's charged, what's not
No.
charged.
No, the reason I ask is,
say it's going through Android. Let's just say it's going through an Android device.
If it's going through Android, it's really going off of your phone, then it's probably using Google Maps. And yes, that would be an impression.
That's counted.
You know, if you're like in a Mercedes and you're using the Mercedes in-car navigation system, it's not connected to your phone, then who knows? I don't know what Mercedes system uses for map searches. It's probably proprietary. And in that case, it wouldn't count as an impression. If I'm doing it on the, I've got an Apple, so I use CarPlay in my car. If I'm in the car and I say, hey, Siri, I need to find the closest pizza place to me, that would not be an impression in Google My Business, because it's going to use the Apple Maps system and not Google Maps.
That's a good point too, right? It's not just about Google. So there's Apple Maps, Bing, what is it? Bing locations or Bing, Bing local.
Yeah. So it just depends on what that user is going to be using for their tool of choice.
Mm-hmm. When Siri first launched, it was Yelp and default, Yelp and Bing by default, right?
And Siri, the stars that come up on Apple Maps are still from Yelp, which hurts a lot of businesses because they don't know that. And that was one of the things I always kind of really talk about when I'm talking about reviews in my presentations, because you could have 2,000 reviews on Google and a 4.9 rating with your 2,000 reviews. And then if a customer wants to get directions and they're using an Apple device and they just default and they say, hey, Siri, how do I get to this place? Then Siri's going to pull it up, and you may have 10 reviews and a 1.5-star rating on Yelp. That's what that customer is going to see. And maybe that customer decides not to come to you anymore because you're like, whoa, this guy's got horrible reviews. I'm not going to go there. So even though Yelp is the devil and nobody really wants to deal with it, you got to make sure you got a decent review score on Yelp for all of the Apple users out there, because otherwise you can lose customers.
Don't overlook Yelp. Don't overlook Apple users, which is the vast majority of cell phone users and mobile users, and Apple Play in cars and everything else, right? Yep. Pay attention. I mean, definitely focus on Google, but don't overlook everything out there on the market. Right. And you can do that with review emails and stuff that you send. Another
paid thing that if you've got a $3,000 budget for your paid search, I wouldn't suggest this, but a lot of companies spend a lot more than that. And if you've got the budget, obviously you need to be doing local SEO if you're a local business, because that's super important. But if you've got money to play in paid search too, buying ads on Waze is really cheap and usually really effective. And there's a lot of people out there that are on Waze. So you can buy ads on Waze really cheap and get that kind of visibility of, oh, geez, I didn't know that was over there. Cool. I can go there because this giant branded pin shows up.
I used to love Waze. I haven't used it for so long. It was so cool. Like just, it was so gamified, right? Just used to love it.
Yeah. I used to be really into the gamification side of it. And then I just kind of fell off of that. But still, anytime I'm doing directions anywhere, I always use it because I love the fact that it will give you the fastest route. Mm-hmm. Not the most direct route. And for sure, traffic in Dallas can get just really, really bad really quick. The way that it will, Google Maps or Apple Maps will just show you, oh, it's red, there's bad traffic, you're screwed. Waze will actually say, oh, I'm recalculating this route for you, and I'm going to take you around the traffic so you don't sit there. So I always like that.
So let's backtrack a little bit. Here's some really good takeaways from this whole conversation from the past 5 minutes or so. One, use Google My Business, get it all set up, but don't overlook everything else out there on the market, right? Don't overlook Yelp, don't overlook Bing, Don't overlook Apple or whatever Apple integrations you can manage. Don't even overlook Yahoo. You might want to overlook MapQuest, unless you're a senior living facility or something like that. So, but really, like, don't just focus on Google My Business. Focus on everything else. I always tell my clients or work with my clients, we move Yelp over. I think by default in Google Analytics, Yelp is considered to be a social media channel. We move over that to organic because it's a search channel at the end of the day. It's all search intent. It's all buyer intent, whatever it may be. And then also, Greg Gifford's number 2 tip that you can take away today is for a really low cost way or low barrier of entry to get into sticking out in local search or Waze advertisements. So Waze is a very cost-effective way to explore advertising in local search. What's another hot item that you can give our audience today here on Facebook Live, YouTube, or in the audio podcast as well? What should they?
I mean, it all kind of comes back to Google My Business because so many features have rolled out, not just last year, but they've had a lot of updates. Another one that I really like to talk about is the questions and answers section in Google My Business. Rolled out like 2016. A lot of people still don't know about it, and a lot of people don't utilize it. And most users in the real world think it's a messaging system because you can click ask a question and people just assume I'm asking this question. It's like a messaging platform to the business. But it's really community discussion. So anybody can ask a question and any random person in your community can answer that question for you, even though they meant to ask the business. So it's really important to pay attention there. Some people are not computer savvy and you'll have reputation issues where people will leave a bad review there and you got to respond to it. A lot of times, I mean, we've done research in the past, up to 40 or 50% of the questions asked are actually people that are leads that you could make a sale to, but that's the only way they're interacting with you. So if you don't pay attention, you miss that business. Businesses can actually upload questions. So you can seed your own questions there. So one of the big things we've been saying that we all kind of stole from Mike Blumenthal is that Google My Business is your new homepage. It's that first impression that you make with customers. So if people are looking you up and find your Google My Business, they're not necessarily going to click through to your site to look for a frequently asked questions page on your site. But if they've got your Google My Business pulled up and they've got a question, they're going to go to that questions and answers section. So if you seed your common questions and then answer them, when you go in as a user to ask a question, as you start typing a question, it's almost like the autocomplete of when you're typing something in as a search query. If a similar question has been asked before and the answer is present, or if that question has been answered by something that's in a review, Google will actually, as I'm typing that question in, pop open the answer to the right automatically. So if there's only 2 questions that have ever been asked, it's more likely that the answer is not going to exist. I'm going to ask that question. I've seen businesses that have loaded 40 or 50 common questions in there. And that means as most people come in and have those common questions, that answer is already going to be there and it's going to pop up. That's a way better user experience. And you're much more likely to get those users to convert and click through and be customers. And then now with COVID, you can load in questions like, do you have to wear a mask to go into this store? Yes, you have to wear a mask. Does the staff get a temperature check every morning? Yeah, here's our COVID protocols. Like, there's so many things that you can do there to stand out from your competitors and answer those questions that those buyers have late in the funnel where they know they're going to buy. They just don't know where they're buying from. That Q&A section can really push people over the line and get them to come in and see you. So it's awesome.
Beautiful. Should business owners argue with people that have had a negative experience in their establishment?
No, that's another big mistake that most people make. So when you get a bad review, the response that you put up to that bad review shouldn't be to that person. Your response is for everybody else in the future that reads that review that wants to see what happened. Because if I get a bad, like, let's say I'm the hot chicken place that you want to bring your kids to, and you come to my hot chicken place, and for whatever reason, the kid up front did something that pissed you off and you had a bad experience, and you leave a review and flame me as the business owner or the manager or the person taking care of that reputation, I'm going to see that and I'm going to try to contact you and take care of that situation. Or, dry cleaners, attorneys, doctors, lawyers, car dealers, people that you actually have that customer's contact information. You're not a restaurant where you got to go find it. Like, this person came in and I've got their information and they left a bad review. I'm calling that person saying, I'm so sorry that happened. What can I do to make this right? Or, we're sorry you had that bad experience. You see so many default responses where it's like, sorry you had a bad experience. Please call me at this number so we can discuss it. No, reach out to the person in the real world, rectify the situation. A lot of times those people are going to come back and change that review into a good review and say, hey, look, I left a 1-star review, but they came back and took care of me, so I'm changing it to a 4 or 5-star review. And for the ones that don't, you can put a response in, and if it's completely egregious and not right, you can say, Mr. Jones, here's what you said, but clearly this wasn't the situation. Here's what happened. And then we called you and we took care of it and we fixed this for you. And you said you were happy and we're sorry you haven't changed the review, but hey, or if it's a totally bogus review, hey, we've done an extensive search of our records and don't see any fact or any proof that you've ever set foot in our store or that we've ever talked to you. So we're not sure why you felt the need to leave this false review. But if you're a real person and this really happened, but you're using a fake name, hey, let us know. We want to make this right for you. What does the general public get out of that? Oh, this probably isn't a real review. And you're okay. But so many people get super heated because, somebody just told you your baby was ugly and you're pissed off and you're going to come in and be like, no. And then that just makes you look like an a-hole and it hurts you more than it helps you. So be cool-headed and respond so that other people in the future see what you did. That's the way to do it.
And if other people are like me, when they go to a Yelp page or any kinds of Google reviews or whatever, I just scroll until I see a 1-star. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Owners, I'm like, look, what do you do when you go to Amazon or when you go looking at a restaurant? You don't read the 500,000 positive 5-star reviews that say it's great. You go right to the 1-star reviews to see how they sucked. And potentially, was that person, was it a legit bad review or was it, just somebody that's a troll or whatever? So you got to realize people are reading those and you need to have the right kind of response. Because if you post the same generic, hey, we're sorry, we strive to give great customer service, but if you call it this number, we'd love to hear more details about what happened. And that's the same response that you just paste into every bad review. Then you look like a jackhole that doesn't care.
Nice. Word of the day, jackhole.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Gifford, thank you so much. We're about out of time today. I just want to let anyone know who's listening or viewing today's interview with Greg that you can find him online at Twitter on @GregGifford or pretty much anywhere else at Greg Gifford.
Yep.
Any parting words today, sir?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys haven't heard of me before and you thought I was interesting or funny, we didn't even talk about my cool tattoos. That's my new one too. You haven't seen that yet. Wait.
Okay. So let's give you an extra 5 minutes. Okay. So we got ET/the emblem logo.
Yeah.
ET is like one of the best first of all, ET is the first time I ever saw pizza delivery in my life. I was watching that movie and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Grew up in the countryside. We didn't have shit. So we're watching the movie, like, pizza delivered to the house. What is this? What's this pizza thing? How come it's being delivered to the house? Right. Second, D&D, right?
Yep.
It opens up with a bunch of kids, Tommy Howell and his buddies playing D&D.
Yep.
And then Reese's Pieces, of course.
Yep.
But then it's one of the greatest Halloween movies there is.
For sure.
Right? So it's a win-win-win. What made you want to get the tattoo?
But anyway, point being, if you guys want to follow me at all, obviously Twitter's my platform of choice, but I do a weekly video series called Local Search Tuesdays. Comes out every Tuesday. I put it out on all the platforms so you can see it anywhere. It's short, like less than 5-minute, single actionable tips on local search. So that's a good thing to follow. And that's, if you want to hit it up on our website at searchlabdigital.com, but you can see it if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, or we put it on YouTube, like it's out everywhere.
Okay, let me grab the link here and I'll drop it. So you usually do have a theme to your presentations and your videos as well. Right?
Yeah. So I was a film major in college and I'm just obsessed with movies. And so every time I do presentations at conferences or webinars or whatnot, there's always a movie theme. So the background of every slide is a movie, and there's always a theme, like it's all comedy movies, or it's all Westerns, or it's all horror movies, or it's all 80s movies or whatever. So, it's goofy. And I do a little intro gig where there's usually anywhere from 5 to 10 slides where I kind of set up what I'm going to talk about. And there's all kinds of just bad jokes and puns and stuff from movies. So yeah, it's fun to do.
Best 80s movie?
The Goonies.
The Goonies. I can dig that.
Yeah, my whole right leg. I finished my leg sleeve, so my whole right leg is Goonies tattoos.
You think Kong versus Godzilla or Godzilla versus Kong's gonna be good?
I've liked what they've done with that whole universe so far. I'm curious why in the other Godzilla movies, Godzilla was a good guy, and now it's like we have to get Kong to fight Godzilla. Like for some reason, Godzilla's attacking and messing stuff up.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about what's going on there. But yeah, I think it'll be cool. Godzilla or King Kong has gotten way bigger to be able to.
Yeah, there's some reason he's grown. There has to be an explanation for that.
There is. I saw something online. It's like, here's why King Kong is bigger. But I think what my suspicion is there is another big bad that's going to be in there that they're setting it up as God. You know, Superman, Batman versus Superman was like they're going to fight, but really it was another bad guy that was really the bad guy. I think it's the same thing. They're setting it up that it's going to be King Kong versus Godzilla, and there's going to be some fight, but then that fight they're going to take off the brain control chip or whatever's turning Godzilla bad, and then they're going to go after whatever the real big bad is in the movie. That's my suspicion.
There you go. We got 3 months till that comes out, so can't wait. Anything else you'd like to go over before we sign off today, sir?
Yeah, if there's any big time movie fans out there, I am telling everybody there's a new movie that just got released on digital. It was supposed to come out in theaters, but we don't get that anymore, unfortunately. It's called PG, Psycho Goreman. It is maybe gonna overtake Army of Darkness as quite possibly the best movie that's ever been made. It is a throwback to like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers type movies or TV shows. So it's got like it's ridiculously gory too. It's very graphically gory, but it's practical effects. There's not really a whole lot of, there's some digital stuff, but it's mostly practical effects. And then like a lot of the bad guys have that kind of Power Rangers vibe where they're really well designed and cool, but they're also very cheaply practically done. Nice. It's ridiculously awesome, hilarious, crazy movie. Everybody needs to go watch it. It's so awesome.
What is it called again?
PG, Psycho Goreman.
Okay. All right.
It's awesome. Go watch it. It's amazing.
All right. We'll leave things off on that note, GG. We're going to go ahead and go watch some PG later. Is it kid friendly?
Depends on the age of your kids. It's not scary, but there's some pretty graphically cartoonish violence in it. So if your kids are okay with violence, then yeah, your kids can watch it. My little girl is young and she loved it. Like 15 minutes in, she's like, this is the best movie ever. She's still talking about it. She loved it. So,
it's tough, right? Because like
she's almost 8, so she's pretty young to watch something like that. But there's not sex or bad language or any like realistic graphic violence in it. But it's really graphic, but it's very cheesy. It's that tongue in cheek like Army of Darkness.
It's funny that you. So I was watching Fast Times at Ridgemont High last weekend, right? And the Brad in the bathroom, Phoebe Cates in the pool scene came up, and I decided to fast forward.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking about it, and I believe I was about 10 years old the first time I watched that movie.
Yeah.
And there was no editing at the time. Didn't bother me. Didn't mess me up.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of funny how that works. So neither here nor there. Just the my kid doesn't like horror stuff that much. He doesn't like the sight of blood. Even when we're watching UFC and there's a little bit of blood.
See, my boys love watching horror movies. My 11-year-old is super. We're going through all the Jason movies right now, and then we're gonna do Freddy and move on and do that. So he's like super into them. And like if you go back and watch those now, like they're violent, but it's just the effects are so bad from the early 80s, so it's laughable. It's not scary, but Penny won't watch those. She doesn't like those. But man, Psycho Goreman, she was cracking up. It's awesome. Some
of those 80s movies, you could even buy the same like special effects stuff in the back of Fangora magazine, right? It looks like it was the same exact thing they used in the movie.
For sure.
The plastic sawed-off arm or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. On that note, GG, we're going to be out. I dropped some nice links in there. I'll check out Psycho Goreman, PG, Psycho Goreman this weekend. I still need to watch, what was that crazy Nicolas Cage movie that was produced by Legion M? Mandy. I still have to watch Mandy.
Andy's good. You need to watch Color Out of Space. That's another really wacky Nicolas Cage one.
I'll check that out. I'm a big fan of Joe. I thought Joe was one of his best movies in a long time.
Yeah, have you seen the preview for I think it's called Willy's Wonderland?
Oh no, I'll check that out.
Check that out. If that's not the name of it, just look for Nicolas Cage animatronics. So are you familiar with Five Nights at Freddy's?
Yeah, of course.
It's basically Five Nights at Freddy's in the real world. He goes and stays at this entertainment like Chuck E. Cheese kind of place, and all the animatronics are possessed and they're trying to kill him. It looks so over the top and crazy. It's going to be brilliant.
Funny thing was, like, my kid had a birthday party about 3 or 4 years ago at Chuck E. Cheese, and half the kids were scared to death of the animatronics because of Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah. And then I saw that Chuck E. Cheese was filing for bankruptcy, and they were claiming all this other stuff. I'm like, nope. It's Five Nights at Freddy's and the pizza. That's what did it to you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Greg. Got to run. For those of you that have tuned in the past 15 minutes, just hit the rewind button. We're getting talked about a lot of local search, some really good, valuable stuff that's happening. I'm excited to see what's happening there. I love having dashboards in the back end of Google, not only to be able to, quote unquote, control what's happening a little bit and control the conversation, but also to see what's happening from a user behavior and data standpoint. And I just get more and more excited when Google rolls these out. I'm wondering if one day they're all going to be combined into one back-end dashboard, so I don't have to export all of that information and bring it all together again. But really excited what's going on there. Make sure you check out your Google My Business backend. Make sure you update your Google My Business with the safety protocols and other information that's been added in the past year for COVID. If you are a brick and mortar that has that sells products and inventory, you can sync your merchant center in Google My Business, so definitely check that out. And of course, if you're a dealership, chain of dealerships, if you're AutoNation, if anyone from AutoNation is here, Mr. Gifford has some great information on what you can do on that side. I can't think of any dealership networks outside of that. Cox Automotive, others out there. So just check it out. It's a huge opportunity out there. And then Greg, we'll find you online. I dropped your Twitter, I dropped your LinkedIn. So you're gonna be getting lots of LinkedIn emails.
Cool.
And then also we dropped Greg's author feed on Search Lab Digital that has links to all of your videos, or most of your videos that you've done there in that series as well. Thanks again, Greg. It's really been a pleasure. And by the way, everybody, Greg really helped me out with one of my clients when they had a problem last year with GMB. He's a great person. Hit him up. He really knows his stuff, and it's been a pleasure having you on today.
Hey, great to be here. It's good to see you.
All right, thanks, buddy.